You don't need that much. All you have to do really is memorize or is get a few poses in. That's going to be maybe like four poses. You're going to need two contacts, no, three contact, more than four poses. So ultimately, you're going to need two steps. This guy's going so slow right now. You're going to need two steps in total. One step and then another step until you're back into the same position. But a single step is made up of basically two contact poses and a passing pose. And then there's going to be an up and down in the middle, but you don't even really have to worry about those at first. If you could just get the two contact positions, you're almost there. And then you just have to work to make sure that the toes are never dragging below the surface. And wow, this is really slowing down right now because of Zoom and maybe because of my recording. I'm going to try to carry on though. What I like to do though is most people, when they get to animating the armature, animate in this other panel called the dope sheet, which is what Charlie was using, and that gives a lot more kind of control over the particular individual keyframe components. But for this assignment, you're welcome to just think about and animate the timeline. I do like to have the dope sheet open because, and you don't have to think about this at all, because you can kind of save the animated sequence under a certain name so that you can always go back to it if you want. So I'll show you that, but just briefly. Okay, so just to remind you, once everything is parented correctly, your weights are all seeming to work, and everything seems to be responding the way you want it to respond. You're going to be going into pose mode. And let me just, actually I better bring up the dope sheet just so I can clear out the keyframes. I'm going to go into dope sheet here, which is one of the animation panels, and I can't, okay. And it looks a lot more complicated. It's not really very different from the timeline. I should look it up. I don't really know why these two independent things exist. There's also what is it called? The curves. The graph editor, I mean. The graph editor has a reason to exist, which I totally understand, but this maybe does not. But anyway, the dope sheet can be really good because you have the ability to go into this action editor, which shows keyframes for the object that's being selected only. So you can record a specific sequence of motions for just this one object, and I'm going in here right now because something that's also important here is that you can save a certain sequence of movements here under a certain file name, and I for some reason have several already saved there. But if I wanted to just start up a new sequence, I could just X this out, and I have just a clean slate. Maybe I'll do a new one. I don't have to do that if I don't want. I'll just do walk tutorial. Oh, and one thing which I think is also very important to do is to, and by the way, to divide your screen up, a really good way to do that is you don't have to worry about dragging everything, although you can do that. But you can also just right-click in the gutter between panels, and you could do vertical split, horizontal split, and that kind of thing, or join areas like that. So right-clicking is actually a little bit more expedient. So I'm going to do a vertical split. I'm going to turn this back into the 3D viewport. When you're posing, I think I probably still have my animation. No, I don't. Good. So just to know you can, just know that you can save a whole sequence of motions, and I'm going to just forget about that for now. When I've cleared out my animation, I can go into the pose mode. And when you're doing poses, you're going to be moving a lot of the bones, and you'll forget what you've moved. So I think it's good to have the keyframe the keyframe recorder auto keying on the whole time, just so it records everything you do, so you don't have to go through the extra step of hitting I on the keyboard each time. I always forget. It's probably better practice to have that off, but just turn that on. I'm going to go to pose and clear my transformations just to get back. Oh, and I have to make sure I have everything selected. So whenever you really, whenever you want things to apply to all bones, hit A on the keyboard to select them all. Otherwise, it's just going to influence whatever single bone you have selected at a given time. So those are two things to remember, or that's the ultimate thing to remember. Make sure you have all your bones selected if you want something to apply to all of them. And typically, yeah, I like to start off with a clear transformation, clear all, get back to my original A pose or something approximating that. And so starting from there, all you have to do is, if you choose, you can go into one of your standard views, which might help you, but you'll have to move around as you go. I would start off in this with your first contact position. If you want to mirror this, you can start off with the face, the front facing leg or the near leg as the one that's behind. I would also make sure that you have a plane set up as your ground plane, just so you can make sure that things align to a ground plane, so you're not kind of bumping up and down in a way that's unpredictable. This forward kinetics system, where you're just rotating bones in place, can feel a little limiting because it's hard to get the feet to actually stay situated on the ground plane. But actually, in the way that we've added the armature, you can actually move the legs up and down. I'm going to do a box selection to select both toes, to rotate both toes so that my toes aren't beneath the ground plane. So I want this leg to be back. I wish I'd made a model with a character with more robust legs. These legs just feel like nothing I can really deal with. And so I'm going to do this point of contact, or this foot forward, turn these toes down with the box selection B on the keyboard, and then rotate these. And I have my recorder on, so it's going to record all this data. And I would just do the legs. I would do the whole walk cycle with just the legs, and then carry it through. There's one thing that you can do with the legs. If you're finding that in doing the rotation you can't get the foot to really make contact with the floor, you can actually, since these aren't literally attached to the pelvic bone or to the base of the pelvis here, that is the parent of all, you can also hit G and move the foot down a little bit. And depending on how your model flexes, how the weights are working, on my model, there's no problem. Just see how that works out. You can do a little bit of a shift just so the feet are in contact with the floor where they should be. Otherwise, you might have to shift the entire model up and down from this position as you go forward. But I find that it's just easy to just do a little bit of nuancing to the feet there. You're going to later bring in some up and down movements, and you can decide how that's going to work out. But I like to just start with my feet more or less in contact. So I start there, and what I'd recommend is picking some simple number. As we saw with Charlie, you can always lengthen or shorten the duration of the walk cycle. So do whatever you want. I choose just a sequence of like 10 between each major step. So what I would do is I think about a second for a step, and in total 2 seconds and 2 steps for the walk cycle, which of course you can then just repeat again and again and again is the right move. But I could just do 10 or 12 for to get from the contact to the passing position. Or you can just go all the way and go to 20 to 24 and just do the other contact position. But probably I would go. It's worthwhile just doing the sort of in between position here. I might move this a little bit back up if I wanted to, and rotate this back. Whoops, and I grabbed the wrong rotation point. That's going to happen a bit. So at this point, this is backwards, isn't it? Wow. Or there's something. Yeah, his thing is backwards, right? He's walking backwards. I didn't even look closely at that. So what's going to happen here is the foot that's in the back. Am I looking at this backwards? Okay, forget it. What we want to be looking at, I'm going to have to make sure I can give you a good source material for this. This foot's going to be coming up, right? So this foot's coming up, and he's going to be in the sort of passing position where he's bent at the knee, and when you're dealing with a leg like mine, the feet are going to be constantly dragging. So I'm just going to do what I can to make this toe not underground at this point. And I'm also going to come around. So this is in the kind of bent position because he's coming up and he's stepping forward. And then this one is going to be straight up and down at this point, because as the one foot is stepping forward, this other foot is kind of trailing behind in relation to the body. It's carrying the weight right now, and this is where we're going to have. Whoops! I don't know why I have that bone highlighted too. Box. Maybe I was holding Shift. Okay, so this foot will be like that, and I might want to just carry this hip bone up a bit so everything is more or less in line with the ground. I had forgotten to actually make a back toe bone on the right leg, so that was my bad. So now, since we have the keyframe recorder on, we're good to go, and that's our up position. And then, of course, this foot is going to just carry through and make it to, so we're at the passing position here, and then we're going to make it to the contact position. And that's going to be where this foot just, it's a little bit turned at the joint again, but mainly the leg is straightened here, and this is straight, and this is turned. Okay. Oh, and I did that wrong. I could also just hit the R, and I should be on the, what is this, the y-axis? No, x-axis, yeah. And turn this one up to rotate X. And it looks like I'm going to have to bring this foot down because I want it to be in contact with the ground. Okay, and that's going to be a little bit below, but that's okay. And then this foot's going to be a little bit back. And then we'll do the toe, box select, rotate X, and am I also above ground? Okay, we'll just pretend that's above ground. Okay, so now, oh shit, and of course I did that pose. I didn't advance to frame 20, so I'm just going to undo that. Let's go back to my and so you have ample undos for situations like that. And I'd like to actually show you what it looks like, so unfortunately I'm going to have to do this again. Okay, so this is my first step, and it's only 3 poses, and then it can get kind of confusing. Even so, I find myself in a constant state of perplexity in my life. So here's like one step. It's not perfect, but that's the beginning. And so the the walk cycle would be completed by doing that other step. So next we would go to frame 30. We'd have this front foot straight up and down, and then the back foot would be in the passing position, where this is not even a good passing position. The front foot could be straight up and down. The passing back leg will be bent at the knee, and it's called passing. One foot is overlapping. One leg is overlapping the other. One is bent and up in the air, and then we're just we'll finish at 40, where we've made that final contact position, where the right foot will be forward again, and the left foot will have tracked to the back, and then we'll actually be, and at the end you could actually, if you do the passing position here correctly, you should just be able to copy and paste this keyframe to there. So that would be the walk cycle. From there, we could talk about where to go from there, but there's a lot of, it gets pretty simpler there, because at this point you could go into the arms, and the arms, as you all know, are going to just be in opposition to the leg position. So where the leg is to the back, the arm will be toward the front, and it'll swing, and it'll be kind of in the middle, where the leg's in the middle, in frame 10, and then and you can go from there, and that's it. And with the arms, you can really do anything. Like with my example, I just did a very basic walk cycle, but your character, there's a walk cycle that can express the personality of your character, whoever that might be, or whatever mood they might be in. The walk cycle will be somewhat different. And what you saw in Charlie's is you saw also the head bobbing up and down. And I'll try to get you a better diagram for this, but as they're stepping up, the head will go up, as you can imagine. They're stepping up. The foot's trying to clear the ground, any obstructions. We don't want to trip. So in order not to trip, our foot steps up high enough, and our head goes along with it. So and you can just make the head travel up and down by doing a little bit of this, moving this a little bit, and you'll find that your feet also raise up a little bit. But that's really, that you can kind of modulate that as you will. You can also do a little bit of a head bounce. On top of that, what I'd like to add is I wanted to add an armature for the tail, and I have my facial armature, which I guess isn't in this file, but we can add that later. And I'm going to add an armature for the nose as well, and maybe even for the ears, because I find it to be easier than adding like soft body physics, which we'll talk about later as well. But that's the basic setup, and I'll keep going through the process of doing that other step forward. And remember, this always trips me up my whole life. I want to see all the keyframes, and if you're in I believe it's by default on the dope sheet, you see everything. But when I have one bone selected, I'm looking down at this and I say, oh my god, where'd my keyframes go? But then when I select all, I see that I have keyframed. It's just that not every bone is moving or has the same number of keyframes. Some are staying still. So the head bone probably has nothing. So yes. So let me just go through the process quickly of doing that second step. Feel free to shoot any questions at this point. Is that basically clear? We're just really doing a total of I guess five positions. Because we have 3 contacts and 2 passing positions in between, and then you can add up and down in the middle. Rotate.
And then after the bath, you're going to be nice and ready for lots of stories. You do it when you relax. You look like a real relaxing taxi.
this whole time. Hey, Kiki. Not great. So that's going under the floor. You want to go under the floor. And then again, if you find your feet going under the floor, you're going to have to go in and adjust that different places. Where's that going under the floor? Good. Is that my first passing position? I'll have to go in and kind of, correct that as the case may be, but that's for tiny legs, that's a start. And then I'll just go in and into the dope sheet and get back my prior walk cycle, I think. Oops.